Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. They will continue our lab, the Red Arrow lab. This is the video number 33. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. I've been continuing working with securing our Windows Server 2019 based on the recommendations of the Department of Defense and the Defense Information System Agency of the United States. So we have been working now for 2 videos. We have discussed some of the recommendations to secure Windows Server. Some of them are related to securing the local users. Some are concerned about securing your service accounts and application accounts and a lot of things actually. So we have stopped at the last time at this recommendation, which is saying that you need to check the permissions on the C partition on your Windows Server. Okay, so we all know that the system is installed by default, or it is usually installed on the C partition. Okay, so you need to make sure that certain users should have access to these to that partition. Okay, and basically most of them should have the read permission, except for the local administrators, of course, and the domain admin. So here is saying that you need to check the permissions. So we need to go to the server and run a certain PowerShell command to get the permissions on the C partition, or you can right click the partition simply and see the security tab to see what are the permissions for different groups and users on this partition. Okay, and before that you need to make sure that you have a group policy to be applied to all of your servers and workstations. This group policy says that everyone permissions apply to anonymous users. This group policy should be disabled. What we mean by everyone? Everyone, this is a default local group that is created when you install Windows. This basically involves or includes all of the users. So if you need, for example, to give a certain permission to all of your users, you could put them in the everyone group locally, of course. But there is a little bit of a group policy saying that you can, for example, if you give everyone group, for example, on the D partition read, you can give users out of your network. So everyone, it is a local group on a machine. Okay, but if there is a user outside the machine, or not from the machine, or outside of the network, and he need to access the D partition, he will get the permissions of the everyone group. So for example, let's say that we have 2 users, one is called X and one is called Y. X is a member of the everyone group, so he will have read permission on the D. We have give everyone group read permission on D. Okay, so X will have read permission. Y is from outside the network, he needs to access the D partition. Okay, if you have this group policy enabled, then Y will have read permission also, even though he is not a member of the everyone group. So this is a very critical thing to disable, because we should not give anonymous users or unknown users permissions on our local drives. So we need to make sure that this permission is disabled. So he's saying that you need to check the permissions on the partition C to see what users have rights on this partition, and we need to make sure that anonymous users should not have everyone permissions. So let's see how we can check this this thing. Of course, we need to make sure that our default domain policy will have this option disabled. It is in the security option. Okay, it is in Windows settings, security option, network access, and then we will disable this, and then we will review the permissions on the C partition on our domain controller. This because it contains, or it has Windows Server 2019 installed on it. So we will revise and see what users have right on this critical partition. So now I am logging into my PAO workstation, and then we need to go and we use the Windows Admin Center to connect remotely to our domain controller, and then try to see what are the permissions on the C partition. Okay, so we will use the Windows Admin Center to connect remotely and then check the C partition on the domain controller to see what users have rights on this partition. Now we are checking our local policy. Let's see here if we have our network or we have everyone group. This will not have, or the anonymous users will not have the everyone group permissions. Here we are checking our local group policy. This is on the workstation. We should check it on the domain controller, but don't worry, because I have my default domain controller. It will apply to all, and we have these permissions in it, or we have configured this in the default domain policy, so any server or any workstation will have this disabled. So we have it disabled already. This is inherited from the default domain policy, so now it is disabled, so we don't need to worry about it. So we need to go and check the permissions on the C partition. So here I don't find a way, or here I can't access the C partition on the domain controller remotely, so we will do this from the server itself. So we need to go there. We will access the domain controller with my domain admin account, and then we will run a certain command to get the permissions on the C partition. Okay, so let's see how we can do this. So we need to check and see what are the permissions on the C partition. So let's see how we can do this. First of all, I opened the Windows Admin Center and try to see if I can get the permissions, but I will not succeed in it, so I think this will not work. So here let's go and see how we can, or what is the command that we will run on the domain controller to see. So here we will run a certain command to get the permissions on the C partition. So here let's see, here is saying that we can right click the C partition and see right click properties and the security tab, and then we can see the permissions, or we can run this command from the command prompt and it will get the permissions on the C. So we will tell him icals, or this is the command. We will run a certain command. It will get the permissions or the groups that will have groups and users that have permission on the C partition. So here we will paste, because I don't have paste automatically here. So I'll tell him icals C. So here is we will get the permission. So here we can see that there is a user called net authority. Okay, system, it will have certain permissions. Built-in administrators local group will have certain permissions. Built-in users local group will have certain permissions. So it have a lot of permissions. Users or built-in local users group will have certain permissions on the C partition, and creator owner. So all of these are a little bit maybe not explainable, but you can check the PDF, because he need to have, or you need to revise these permissions with the one contained in the PDF. If there is any differences, we can, I think, change them through the command prompt or through the graphical interface. Anyway, so you need to check these permissions with the PDF and see if they are already there or not. Okay, so this is a way to check the permissions on the C by the command prompt. But as for the graphical interface, you can just simply go to this PC and then right click and then properties. Okay, and then we go to the security tab, and then we tell him advance. Okay, and here we can see these are the permissions. So we need to check also, we can check it from here. If you have your domain controller, you have a Windows Server 2019 graphical interface installed, you can check it from this this place. Or if you don't have a graphical interface, for example, if you have your domain controller, you have an operating system, for example server core, which doesn't contain any graphical interface, you can do it through a command prompt. So here we need to check also these permissions. Okay, so this is also one of the good things to know. Anyway, so we need to check and see what are the users that will have permissions on the C partition. He has defined in the PDF who will have access to that partition. Okay, he's saying that built-in administrators, Here we can see, he's saying, for example, let's go here, he's saying that, for example, system will have full control. So the user that is called system, a local user, will have full control over the C partition. Administrators local group will have full control over the partition. Users or local users group will have read and execute, will have create folders and append the data. Users will have create and write data. Creator owner, the owner of the partition or the owner of the files, will have full control. So here we can see a lot of users and local groups. If we are, for example, if I go and check my C partition, you will see that actually these are the groups actually, and these are by default. You don't need to change it because Windows will give them these permissions automatically. Here we can see administrators will have full control, local administrators group, system will have full control, this is a user, local users group will have read and execute and modify and create folders. So all of these are users basically. Okay, so we can check the permissions from here. If you need to change, just change the permission and choose the permission you need. Anyway, so this is a way to make sure that only authorized people will have access to this critical partition on your server. Okay, especially if this is a domain controller. So this is one of the things we need to check the permissions on the C partition on every Windows Server 2019 or every server. So here I think maybe I think we can pass this real quickly because we do not see anything here. Anyway, so we have already checked these permissions, so I think here we were not able to check this. Just a moment, guys, so we can go further. So it's not it. So we can type, we can connect remotely, okay, through the remote admin center and connect remotely to the server and do the same process here. So we can go to the Windows admin center and use the PowerShell session remotely to execute the same command. Okay, so you can go directly to the server and open a command prompt and run the command, or you can go remotely to the Windows admin center and run the command. Then another recommendation also is to check, we have checked the permissions on the C partition, we need to check the permissions on the folder named program files and program files x86. These are two folders that most of the programs in your Windows server is installed in. So you need also to check the permissions on these folders who have access to the program files. Program files, this is the location basically, or most of the time all of your programs will be installed in this folder. So also you need to check to see who will have access to these important folders on your Windows server. So also we will check this. We will go and run the same command, but except of running C only, we need to give him the same, or to give him all of the or to give him a certain folder in the partition, not the permissions on the whole partition. So we will copy it. Take care, when you have a folder that have spaces between its name, you need to put it between brackets. So here we need to put program files or the whole location to be put between brackets or between commas, because it will not verify the name of the file. Anyway, so again, if you have any folders that have spaces between its name, you need when you run a program in the PowerShell, you need to put the whole path or to put the folder between commas, because the PowerShell doesn't accept spaces. Okay, so here we have tell him to, we have connected remotely to the domain controller through the Windows Admin Center using the PowerShell, and here we are telling him to get the permissions on the C program files. So here we can see there is a lot of local users and local groups that have permission on the C program files. Okay, also we can do this through the graphical interface simply by going here and open this and then tell him right click and then properties, and then properties, okay, and then security, and then advance. Then we can get all of what we need. Here we can see that administrators will have modify on this folder. Local administrators group will have modify and full control, and users local group will have read and execute, and a lot of users actually. So this is how we can get the rights from the graphical interface and from the PowerShell or from the command prompt interface. So this is also, we need to check and revise these rights. So you have the PDF, check them one by one and see if there is any differences between what is displayed in the, or what is written in the PDF and what is displayed on your screen on the server. Okay, so we need to check and see, and then we need to make sure, here is saying that, let's first see the recommendation. And also there is another folder, we have two folders with the same name, program files, but one of them is program files and the other is program files 86 number. These are programs that is usually 86 bits. These are installed in this folder. So the programs that are 86 bits will be installed here. The 64-bit will be installed here. So you need to take care. Some programs are 86-bit, it will be installed here. Some programs are 64-bit, will be installed here. By the way, our operating system is 64-bit, but you can install on it programs 86-bit, but the opposite is not available. So for example, if you have your Windows Server 86-bit, you cannot install 64-bit programs on it. And by the way, the recommendation is to install 64-bit systems on your servers and on your workstations as well. So we will check the permissions on this folder, okay, and see what are also the permissions through the graphical, so through the command prompt, and we have seen how we can check the permissions over the graphical interface. Here is saying, let's get a little bit further here. So I need to check, or this recommendation saying that Windows installation directory must conform to minimum requirements. So we have checked the whole C partition for the permissions, and we have checked the program files and program files 86-bit, and then there is a very important folder called C Windows. In this folder, the core of the operating system is installed there. Okay, so this is a very important folder. This contains the operating system and its core components. Okay, so we need to check also and see the permissions on this folder. Okay, so he is basically revising the most important folders on the C partition and check the permissions on them. Okay, and check the C partition as a whole. Okay, so we all know how we can do this now. We just type the command and then type the folder, and we will see the permissions and revise it. So if there is any differences, you need to rectify it or to change it to what the PDF contains. Okay, now we need another recommendation is to check the permissions in the registry. Okay, something or some part in the registry. What is a registry? We can go and check the internet and have a look. So for example, here, let's open it. I have said this before, but we can just revise and see. So let's have a look. What is Windows? Okay, registry. Here we can see this. Okay, he's saying that Windows registry is basically a hierarchical database, okay, that stores setting for Microsoft Windows operating system and applications. Okay, so this is basically a database that contains all of the configuration setting for the Windows operating system and the applications. So by changing this setting or changing this, or by playing in this database, you can change the configuration of the Windows operating system and the application. Okay, so it's a database that contains all of the setting of the Windows operating system and the programs installed on it, and by playing in this database you can change the configuration of the Windows or the application. So I think we can have a look, a little bit of a look about the different parts of the Windows registry. Here we can see that what is used for, it is used also you can gather information from it because it is a database, and you can play with it to change the configuration of the Windows or to change the configuration of the application. So I think we need to have more on So let's have a look here. I need to have some about a look here. For example, let me show you all the parts, the different parts of the registry. So for example, if you open here, I tell him registry, reg edit, and press enter, and then press yes. Here, let's see here, you will have different parts of the registry. So this is related to the machine, so all of, or this part, all of its setting is related to the machine itself, okay, or the computer, and this is related to the user. So these are the settings that are related to the user. These are the setting to the current user, actually the one that I'm logged in now, and this is for the local machine as a whole, and these are for all of the users. Okay, so this is basically the most important three parts in the registry. Okay, I don't know what is classic roots or current, but these are the most three parts important in the registry. If you play in this setting, this will affect the whole configuration of the machine. If you play with this setting, it will affect the current user, and if you play in this setting, it will affect all of the users on the machine. Okay, so here he's telling us we need to check the local machine registry part in the Windows server and see if certain users can play with it. So we need to make sure who can play with the registry, especially on the Windows server. So let's go and see how we can check the permissions. So we can go to the server and run a certain command, tell him reg edit, and then we need to see here, first of all, we have checked the permissions on the Windows folder. This is the one that has the operating system installed on it. We have said that we need to check to see the permissions. And then here also we can check the registry. So we can check the registry remotely on a server from the Windows Admin Center from this location. But actually we will not be able to get the permissions, I think. So here is the local machine. He need to check the permissions on the local machine, and the local machine is divided to parts. So you have local machine, the security setting of the machine, the software setting of the machine. So this or Windows HKey local machine is divided to parts. Okay, so we need to check every part of this registry. Okay, so we need to go and see the different permissions. So we can check the permissions remotely from the Windows Admin Center, but I think this is not available actually. If you go there and try to check the permissions, so here for example this is the key. So if I try to get the setting of this key, security for example, and open the setting, here I cannot get any I don't have access. Okay, so I need to go physically to the machine and check the registry myself and see the setting itself. But I think there is a way that we can get the registry permissions, or to get the permissions on the registry. Anyway, so we will go to the server directly. Okay, we need to go to the server directly. So here we can go. We will go there and type reg edit and then press enter. Here we will get the registry. Okay, and then we can open local machine and press on security, and then right click, okay, and tell him get me the permissions on this part of the machine. Here we can see that systems and local administrators have full control over this part of the machine, okay, or this part of the registry actually. So here we see that it is in comply, or it is in compliance with the PDF. So we need to check these permissions. This is the security. Just a moment guys. So this is security, and then we have different parts. Sorry. So we have different parts. So we have different parts. There is something called security, and then we have software, and then we have system. So these are different parts in the registry for different configuration sections for the machine. Okay, so here we need to check and see the different permissions. So actually I think all of them are in compliance with the PDF. So this is basically how you can check the permissions. Just you need to check and see if the right groups and users have the right permissions. Okay, so this is basically very routine check. Okay, so let's go to the next recommendation. He is saying that non-administrative accounts or groups must only have print permissions on print shares. So if you are sharing a printer, okay, on a server, you need to make sure that non-administrative accounts or groups shared, for example, you shared the printer on a server and you need certain groups and users to access this shared printer on the server, need to make sure that they only have print permissions on it. So you can't control the printer or can't control the queue. Windows shares are means by which files, folders, printers and other resources can be published for network users to access. Improper configuration can permit access to the devices and data beyond a user's need. So if you give users full control over the printer, they can delete other users' queue or other users' print jobs. So you need to make sure, if you share the printer on a server, if you have a print server, for example, and you are sharing printers through it, you need to make sure that your users only have print permission on it. Okay, he's saying if you don't have printers shared on a server, so this is non-available if you don't have things, and exclude print to PDF or Microsoft XPS document writer, which does not support sharing. So these are two default printers. You will find it in any server or any workstation. Basically these are not printers, it is virtually a printer, but these two have a function. One of them, if you print to this virtual printer, it will change anything you print on it to a PDF, and the other one, if you print anything on it, it will change it to something like a picture. So anyway, we don't have anything shared on or don't have any printer shared on our domain controller, so we will not don't need to worry about this recommendation. So we don't have any printers shared, and we can check also to see if we have any printers shared from the console, so you can access the server remotely and see if we have any printers shared. Okay, I will show you all how we can do this. So we can check and see if there is any printers shared on our server or any server in the domain. So we can do this remotely through the Windows Admin Center, or we can go physically to the server and check it. Okay, so he's saying if you need to check something, you need to check the printer, the sharing tab, and see what are the permissions. Okay, so anyway, I don't have any printer shared, so I will not bother myself with this recommendation. So we will continue working. Here is saying that outdated or unused account must be removed. So it is very critical that on any server that has Windows Server 2019 operating system installed on it, you need to check the local users used on this machine. If some of them are outdated or unused, so for example, if you have an account, you have created a local account and you are not using it anymore, so you should disable it or remove it. Okay, so how we can know this? We can run a certain PowerShell command and see what is the last time a local user have logged in. So if you have, for example, not logged in with a local user for about maybe 90 days or 60 days, then you should disable it. If you have more than 60 days, maybe for example 3 months or whatsoever, so you can remove it because you don't use it anymore. But don't leave it, because this can be a security breach or a security hole, because a hacker can use this account. So here we will say, here is saying that we will check and see if there is any user that didn't log in for 35 days, and this is not for the local users, this is for the Active Directory. Okay, so if you are on a domain controller and you need to check who are the users in your Active Directory that didn't log for 35 days, you will run this command, and actually you can disable it until the user comes, so don't leave it opened. Okay, so we will go now and check. We will go to the PowerShell. So that you can do this task regularly and see if there is any users in your Active Directory that didn't log for a long time, and you need to check why they didn't log in for a long time and see if they are on vacation, if they have left the property and your IT personnel didn't disable it or remove it at or when the user left the property. So we need to check. Here we can see that you will get a lot of information concerning the user. We need to check only the part concerning the last login time. Okay, so we will check and see. It's actually a lot of data because I have only 2 or 3 users that has logged in this lab. So all of my users didn't log for more than 35 days. Anyway, if you to run this command on a domain controller, if you need to run it on a member server or a standalone system, you will run this command. Okay, so we will run a different command that will get you the local users on the machine, okay, and when they have logged in the last time. So we will copy it and we will see. Actually I don't have any servers that are not domain controllers, but we will run it anyway. So you need to know that there is a command to get the users on your Active Directory when was the last time that they have logged in, and you can run another command to get the local users when was the last time that they have logged in. So we will run this command. I will see this is actually more organized. So if you do this command, it is much organized. You will see the data. Okay, the data before that we have displayed, or it was a result of the previous command, it was a little bit not organized. So let's see when we type this command how we can get the data more organized. So here let's see what is the data that will be displayed. So here we will only just press enter and see. It will return a list of the local accounts. Okay, and actually this is domain controller, so it will retrieve the Active Directory accounts. Okay, so we will press enter and see how is the data displayed. It will be displayed in a little bit of an organized way. Okay, so here we can see that, for example, let's have a look here. So here if you can see, he will give you the username and if he have logged in or not. Never, he means never true, means that this user never logged in with his user account. If never, and then if a user is logged in, he will give you a time and then it will say false. Okay, so for example, if there is this user that had logged in, never will be changed to a time and then you will have its status as false. But what we mean by never true means that all of these users never logged into the domain and this is true, or their account is their account is enabled. So for example, there is a user that never logged into the machine and his account is disabled, so it is false. So all of these users never logged into the domain and their accounts are enabled. Okay, so this is how we can interpret this data. So here I think we can go a little bit further, because there is one of these users that I have already logged in with. So you will see a date and something else, but actually I think we can get further to see. But anyway, so let's go, for example, I will check now. So here if we return back, let's wait for a moment. So here we can see that the administrator account, it has logged in 16/8/2021 maybe at 3 or 4 p.m. and false. This means that the account is disabled. So the administrator account, or the local administrator account on the domain controller, the last time he logged in 16/8, this time, and it is disabled. So this is one of the things we need to take care to see when was the last time the users logged in. And if there is a user that didn't log for 35 days, you should disable it or remove it. Depends upon the situation of the user. Okay, So this is one of the things. And here you can exclude, here is saying that you can exclude some of them. So for example, my administrator account is disabled, okay, and it could be enabled anytime. So here you can exclude built-in administrators, guest account. This guest account we have already disabled before, and application accounts. So for example, if you have a service account or an application account that was not used for a certain time, you can leave it, because this depends upon if the application is working or not. So for example, you can leave an application not working for 30 days. For example, all of the users are on a vacation, so we will not work with the application. So this will not be implemented on built-in administrator accounts, guest accounts, application accounts. So this is one of the things actually. So this is one of the finding. So we don't have server accounts or accounts must have a password or must require password. So you need to have your all of your users to require a password. So you cannot create an Active Directory account for a user and this user logged in without a password. So every user should have a password, and you could not create any accounts that doesn't require a password. Okay, so we can know if, for example, I need to know if I have a user in my domain that doesn't require a password to log in. We can do this using also a PowerShell. So let's see how we can do this, but before I need to check if I have time. Yes, we have 36 minutes. So let's go and see if I can check and see if I have users that doesn't require a password. And he say that you can exclude the disabled accounts. So these are only for the enabled account. Okay, disabled account will not we will not count for it. Okay, so we need to see if we have something like this. So let's see, password not required. So he will check for a certain attribute in the user if he doesn't require a password. So let's run this command and see if we have any accounts on our domain controller that doesn't require a password. So here we can see he is getting all of the users, okay, and he is saying false, false, false. So let's first check what are these fields. Just a moment. Sorry guys. So here we need to check and see the fields. Now we need to go down. Okay, continue. So we can go up a little bit, up again, and let's see what he's talking about. He is talking about password not required and if the account is enabled or not. So here we can see administrator, password not required, false. That means that it requires a password. Okay, it requires a password. Okay, enabled, false, means that this account is disabled. Okay, so let's go to another account. Guest, password does not require, true. That means that the guest account doesn't require a password, but it is disabled because we have enabled here false. Okay, if it is true, true, then that means that the guest account doesn't require a password and it is enabled, the account is enabled, but it is disabled and it doesn't require a password. So this gets in the line, or it is compliant with what the PDF says. So we need to check both values. If you have a value, for example true, then that means that the account doesn't require a password, and you need to check if it is true, if this is the account enabled or disabled. So we can see that all of them, Karim Raouf, for example, this is a normal account, it does require a password and it is enabled. Okay, so this is basically what we are talking about, and he's saying that we can exclude the guest account or we can exclude the disabled accounts. So this is basically something normal because the guest account doesn't require a password. So this is on the domain controller. If you need to run it on a member server or a standalone, so you have two type of commands. One to run on the Active Directory to get all of your Active Directory users that doesn't have a password, and you can run another command on a member server or a normal server and get the local accounts that doesn't require a password. So we will run both commands and see the different results when we run these commands. So we will run the other command. So we have two sections, one to run on a domain controller and one to run on a normal server or a member server. So we will run this command to get if this is a normal server. So we run this command and tell him paste, but first we need to remove the commas, okay, the brackets. So we will run it like this and get it, okay, and then let's see the result that we will get from running this command. So press enter. He doesn't get any thing, so we don't have any local users, okay, any local users. This is not Active Directory users, any local users on the domain controller that doesn't have a password. All of them have password. Actually the guest, but I don't know why this command didn't get the guest. Anyway, let's get another thing. Here is saying that this recommendation, if you get a little bit further here is saying that you should not also have any account. Let's go and get the other recommendation. He's saying that passwords must be configured to expire. So you should not have any user account that his password never expire. His password never expire, that means that he will not change his password forever. So for example, most of the users will set a password for their accounts, and then after a certain period, mostly it's 60 days, he need to change the password, okay? But some special cases, some users in the Active Directory or some local users in the operating system, they have the option of password never expire. These are application or service accounts. We have discussed this before in a previous video. A service account or application account, it is an account that it is dedicated to run a program or to run a service in the Windows. So this kind of accounts, you should put the option of password never expire, because if the password expired for this special account, your programs or services will not run, because they are depending on this account to initialize them or to run them. So we need to make sure that any account in my Active Directory or any account locally on a machine should have his password to expire, except for the application accounts or the service accounts, because an account that have his password not expire will have his password not changed, and this will ease the operation of a hacker to know the password. Your password should be frequently changed, okay, so it should not be cracked or discovered. So let's continue and see how we can run a command in on our domain controller to get the accounts that have the option of password never expire activated on them. So I have one account that is a service account that this option is enabled on him. So let's see if he will get this account. Yes, we have two accounts, the guest account, which is already disabled, and we have another user called Bruce Herena. I consider this user as an application account, so we have his password never expired true, and it is enabled because this is a service account, so it should be enabled, and we should have the password never expire enabled. And someone tell me, you will leave this account password not change it? No, I will change it, but manually, okay? We will not leave it for the Windows to decide. We will do this manually. So we will check this option. So we will not let the Windows disable the account if the password is expired. We will enable the option and we will change the password manually or reset the password manually. As for the guest account, it doesn't have password or has password never expired, but it is disabled. And actually we can rename the account and disable it, something like the local administrator account. Anyway, so this is how we can get the Active Directory accounts. What about the local accounts? We will run a different command that will get us the same result, but for the local users, not for the domain users. So this is also here, there is in every recommendation there is a part for the domain controller and a part for the member servers or the normal servers. So here we will run the command on the normal servers. So here, this is also one of the good things. Here is saying that you can exclude application accounts and disabled accounts, something like the guest account. We have two. We have the application and we have the guest account. So let's tell him paste, but first remove the brackets, and then we need to run the command and see if we will get any returned data, and press enter. So we didn't have anything actually. I don't know how this is for the local users, and here he's saying that you need to have a monitoring system to monitor the system files on a Windows server. So this is something like maybe if you have an intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system or an antivirus, it should monitor the changing in the system files in the Windows server. So there is some malicious programs that can play with the system files and change them. So you need to have a system to monitor the changes in the file systems. So I think we have some, I think he is talking about, or he is referring to the intrusion detection system or the intrusion prevention system. So there is a lot of software that do this step. Monitoring system files or changes against a baseline on a regular base may help detect the possible introduction of a malicious code on a system. Okay, so he need to check, for example, or monitor the exe files, the bat, the com, the cmd, the dll. All of these are important system files. He should monitor them for any unauthorized changes. So he is saying that a properly configured and approved HBSS solution that supports a file integrity monitor module will meet the requirements for file integrity check. Anyway, he's simply saying that you need to have a software to monitor your changing in your file or in your system files. خلاص. Sorry. Okay, so we will continue. This is the recommendation. What is HBSS? Let's go and see what he's referring to as HBSS. So let's see it. HBSS solutions. Okay. HBSS solution composed of inorganic system. Let's see this system solutions. Host-based security system. What is HBSS? It's an official name given to the United States Department of Defense commercial off-the-shelf COTS suite of software applications used within the DoD to monitor, detect, and defend the DoD computers, network, and systems. So it's a host-based security system, something like an intrusion detection system. So what's saying here, host-based security system is an official name given to the United States. So this is a software related to the Department of Defense to monitor the critical operating system file changes. Okay, so I think this is what we is talking about. So we can, this is one thing to know. So let's first see how much time we have. So okay, I think we have another 10 minutes. So here we will change or monitor the changing in the operating system files. Here he's saying another recommendation: non-system created file shares must limit access to groups that require it. So you have a file server and you have folders shared on this file server for the users to access them. So you need to make sure that they have the correct rights to access the correct folders. And he's saying non-system, so there is some folders that are shared only to administrators or only to system. Okay, something, for example, like if you type the partition C and then the $sign, you can access the C partition. So let me show you all what I mean by this. If we go to this computer, for example, and then tell him manage, so what I am going to show you all, these are system shared folders. This is not published for the normal users. This only for the local administrators and the domain admins. So if we go to shared folders here and shares, here we can see that I have my whole partition C is shared, and the D partition is shared. Okay, so these are two. He's sharing the whole partition, but it is a hidden share. It's not published, and it's only accessible for local administrators and domain admins. So he's saying that none system shares. So this is by default shared by the system. So he's saying non-system shared, excluding these. You should monitor, or you should know who have access to these shared folders and control it. Okay, so this is basically a very critical or a very logic thing to see. He's saying system tools and shared folders. The one that I was talking about here, if you see or how you can see the shared folders on a server from this part that I have shown you, or from right click and properties. So if you are on a domain controller or on a file server, you can go there and check the shared folders by shared here and like here. All of these are system shared folders. Okay, so we can exclude them from this PDF. Here is saying that admins $C $IPS exist on a system. This is non-available. System created shares will display a message that it has been shared for administrative purposes. Okay, when properties is selected. So let's go and see if you are actually, you can go there and tell him manage, and tell him, we can tell him to share, and then go here and right click, okay, and properties. This has been shared for administrative purposes. The share permissions and file security cannot be set. Okay, so this is one thing to know. So here is saying default share, it is maximum allowed. Anyway, so this is good thing to know. So for example, if I go there and tell him run, and then type my machine name, which is called, I think, Kareem, I think, let me have the name of the machine. So if, for example, I am an administrator, I need to access the partition C for a machine remotely, so I need to do this. So let's wait for a moment. What I need to do here, I will type or get the name, just a moment, go there, okay, copy. So let's see, if I tell him copy and then go to the run, okay, and then we will type like this /C, and then we will do this $, press enter. Here I can access all of the C. So if I am remotely on I want to access the C partition remotely for another machine, type the machine name, the C partition, and the $. You will access it if you are a local administrator on the remote machine or a domain admin. Okay, so this is one of the things to monitor or to say. So let's continue and see. We don't have any, so we have all of our file server or we have our domain controller. We don't have any shared folders on it. We have the second domain controller or the additional domain controller. We have folders shared on it, and we control it actually using the NTFS permissions and the shared permission. Here we can see shares. So I'm accessing the shared folders on my domain controller. The net login and sysvol, this is related to the Active Directory. So this is our system shared folders actually. Okay, so these are also excluded. So all of these are normal things. Here we have backgrounds. This is a folder that I have shared on the domain controller that contains the backgrounds that I need to apply to all of my workstations and servers, and we have controlled this folder. We give everyone read permission on it, so we need to check the permissions on this folder, but we have already done this before. So this is very simple to know. Right click and properties if you need to check the permissions. So here you can see the shared permissions we have. Here we can see that domain users have read permission, okay, and IT have full control. So we have already controlled this. This is the SMB shared permissions, and we can see the NTFS also from the security tab. So this is basically correct. We need to check and see if we have any folders shared on a server. We need to take care not to share any folders on a folders on a server unless they are unless this server is a file server. Here it say that you must have software certificate installation files removed. Use of software certifications and their accompanying installation files for end users to access resources is less secure than use of hardware-based certifications. So he's basically saying that your software or your legal software should have a certification for installation, or legal software should have a certification for installation. Anyway, this recommendation I don't recognize it actually very good. Yeah, anyway, so we will bypass this recommendation and we'll go to the other one. He say the system requiring data at rest protections must deploy cryptic mechanism to prevent unauthorized disclosure and modification of information at rest. So he is saying that you need to have your data or your important data to be encrypted, and you should use or you should employ or you should deploy a cryptic mechanism very strong to protect your data. So we all know that we can use cryptic mechanism, something like the BitLocker or similar software. We can use also cryptic mechanism to secure our connections, something like the HTTPS, something protocol, something like the Kerberos protocol. All of these are protocols that secure the data transfer. So you have a cryptic mechanism to secure data transfer and cryptic mechanism to secure the data stored on your hard disk, and he's talking about data rest protection. So I think he's talking about data on your storage. So you need to make sure you have your data stored and encrypted. Actually, it's a best practice also to implement BitLocker widely in your domain, and I have a complete lab on how you can deploy BitLocker on a wide range in your network. So we will just stop here. So let's just a moment. So here we need to, he's saying that selection of cryptic mechanism is based on the need to protect the integrity of the organizational information. The strength of the mechanism is blah blah blah. Organization have the flexibility either to encrypt all information on storage devices, full disk encryption, or encrypt specific data, files, records, or fields. I prefer encrypt of all of your storage data. So you have the choice to encrypt important data or to encrypt the whole hard disk. I think it's good to encrypt the whole hard disk. Okay, so we need to do this on the workstations. On the servers we need to be a little bit careful because the encryption may affect the performance. So we will stop here at this recommendation that we need to implement something like TLS, encrypted VPNs, IPsec. If you have branches and you need to connect to these branches, you need to protect the communication between, or to the linking between your branches and your main office. This is using a TLS, encrypted VPNs, and so on. So we will stop at this point and we will continue. This is the minute number 28:33. So hope this wisdom informative of you all, and I'd like to thank you all for following. Thank you so much.